Welcome back to the channel, guys, and I hope you guys are doing pretty good. Firstly, I hope you had a really good day. All right. Today, we are starting our 90 days SDET interview preparation series here on YouTube. All right. So, for people who actually stumbled upon this particular video unknowingly, I guess algorithm has worked for you because over here we will be preparing for the SDET interviews. Now, the reason this entire series is going to be for 90 days is because most of us have our notice period as 90 days. All right. And sometimes people fear that, hey, I don't know whether I will be getting a job within this 90 days or not. How can I make the most of this 90 days notice period? The answer lies in this particular series. Now, some of you guys might have got an offer, all right? And our job over here would be to maximize our next offer, all right? Some of you guys might have lost a job right now. So I want that if you guys follow this particular series religiously, you end up getting a better job, all right? Now, there are a few things which I really assume that you guys know. All right. And I'm pretty sure that you guys know that part. Basic Java. All right. Definitely you would have tried to create a framework here and there. All right. And a basic knowledge on Selenium WebDriver, TestNG and all. And I am 100% sure that you guys know all these things. All right. Now, in today's class, we will be focusing on only one interview question. All right. We will discuss that particular stuff. Don't worry. But before I start discussing on this particular question, there are a few things which we need to discuss. Technically, we need to set the ground rules over here. When you will be studying with me, I don't want your mobile phone next to you. All right. Over here, you will see my phone is there. All right. I'm going to switch it off. Just give me a moment. Done. And I'm going to keep it over here. All right. Till the time this particular session is over, all right, you are not going to touch your phone. Okay. If you want, you can have your tea, coffee, whatever you like. All right. Get it ready. To be honest, it's 10 p.m. So I'm pretty sure it's not a wise decision to have tea or coffee. But hey, probably some of you guys want to get some little bit of attention and the energy. So it works. So get those things. All right. You want to have your notebook, guys. You really seriously, you need to start writing things off. The reason I tell people to write and make notes by themselves is because, see, when you're writing it on probably on your laptop or in some Notion page and all, na, it does not give that feeling, okay? And probably you might not be able to remember this thing. And I'm telling it from my personal experience. But when we write things, okay, by ourselves, okay, in our own words and all, we tend to have better clarity. All right. I will be providing the notes. Notes will be available in the membership section. So you can definitely check that part. But still, even after providing the notes, I will still expect that you guys write these things by yourself. All right. Now, the next thing is sometimes you might be a little bit tired, okay, after coming from office or probably, like late night, you don't feel like studying, you want to watch that Netflix show and all those things. It's fine, okay? But please make sure that you set one time which is going to be fixed, okay? You don't want to study in night, it's completely fine. Make sure you get up early in the morning and study. Generally, I don't recommend people that you get up in the morning and the first thing that you do is you open your laptop and, like watch my videos or watch any videos. I'm not that kind of a person. I really don't, like encourage people to do that. Morning times are basically a very spiritual time for me. And I try to tell the same stuff to other folks also that you try to connect with yourself, do a little bit of meditation, or even if you don't like meditation, just sit outside near your balcony, go for a walk, whatever you want, but don't touch your phone. Stay away from digital devices. That's the reason I tell you guys to write these things in your notebook. So if you want to study in the morning, read from your notes. All right. Here you'll see that I have my notes over here. So every morning when I get up, the first thing I do is I'll just go through these notes so that I'm aware of what I'm supposed to study or what I'm supposed to do for the day. All right. Learn to plan your day. All right. No professional I have seen so far over the YouTube that really talks about these things, unless they are into some productivity hack or a productivity guru and all those things. But in reality, okay, we Indians most of the time, okay, I have seen that we don't value our time, okay, and we try to get distracted with a lot of things. You know, like I will watch probably a reel, or probably I'm going to watch a YouTube video, or probably I'm going to watch some series over the internet. But all these things are not planned; they just happen. Okay, your entire life, right, is technically just the attention, okay, on the things that you're giving. That's all. If you ask me what is the definition of life, wherever you give your focus, that is your life. All right. If you're going to give your focus to your family, to your health, to your career, that's your life. And it is going to grow. All right. If you're going to focus on things that don't matter, all right, it's definitely not a pretty deep life. I would say that's a term actually. And I would say it's not a quality life. All right. So think about it. Okay. With this series, I don't just want you guys to learn automation, but also try to incorporate that quality, you know, where you know what is important for you and what is not. All right. We are in that stage of our life. Most of the viewers over here probably would be 24 to 35. All right. So it's really important that we value things that matters to us. All right. Um, Wheels, means they don't matter. Okay. I hope this particular part is clear to everyone. I hope you guys are ready. Let's get started with today's session. Now, over here, guys, in today's class, as I've said, I'm only going to focus on one question. And that one question over here is, explain the OOPS concept, object oriented programming concepts, and where you have used it in your automation project, in your automation framework. All right. This particular question has been asked hell lot of time, of course, with different variations. Okay. Sometimes it's just explain the object oriented concepts. Sometimes it is going to be explain where you have used these object oriented concepts in your automation framework, where you have used abstraction, where you have used association, where you have used polymorphism, etc., etc. All right. So in today's class, we will only be focusing on this particular question. I won't be teaching you encapsulation and all. All right. That's the thing. I don't want this particular lecture to be a very dry lecture that, hey, we are discussing upon the theoretical definition and all. Okay. We will try to look it from the framework perspective also. All right. So that we understand this is where we are using this particular feature. Are you getting the point? Talking about the way I talk and way I teach, I like to have these things slow burn. Okay. So if you feel that, Jatin, you should really go right into the topic, I'm not going to do that. All right. The thing over here is you need to slow things down. Okay. Here, you and I are studying together. Okay. You should never directly jump into a particular topic. It's not an entertainment video. All right. Anyways, so let's get started with this particular answer. The first principle of your object-oriented programming is basically classes and objects. That's the first thing. If you want to say that, hey, I'm using object-oriented programming, you are supposed to introduce classes and objects. In your entire automation framework, you're definitely using classes and objects. So that's not something that we will be talking about. But we will be talking about the next feature, which is encapsulation. Now, most of us really know the definition of encapsulation. When I take interview, okay, the definition of encapsulation, what people say is binding of variables and methods together. That's what you call as encapsulation. Bang on. 10 points to it. The second thing over here that comes into picture is why do you need encapsulation? This is where people start to fumble a little bit. All right. So we'll read this particular stuff first. All right. Over here, encapsulation is basically binding of data. But which data are we talking about? We are talking about instance variable. Instance variables. What are instance variables? Explain it to me. Take a moment, answer it off. What is instance variable? Variables which are created inside the class and are going to be non-static. You call them as instance variable. Please write it down in your notebook. Variables created inside the class and is going to be non-static. Okay, it should be non-static. You call them as instance variable. Instance variable is going to be created inside which memory space? All right, it's not written over here. I'm asking you guys. Okay, instance variables are going to be created inside which memory space? They will be created in the heap memory. Make a note of this particular point. So encapsulation is basically binding of data, the instance variable and methods. Which methods are we talking over here? We're talking about getters and setters together. All right. Next point. It mainly focuses on restricting the direct access to instance variable from outside the class. So what we will be doing, we will be marking the instance variable as private. All right. And the moment a variable becomes private, you cannot access it outside the class. Don't worry, we will go through the code also. Now, some of you guys will be like, Jatin, show the code. Wait, read the 4 points. We'll go through the code. Relax, we have all the time in the world. It mainly focuses on restricting direct access to instance variable from outside the class. And how we restrict it off by marking that particular variable as private. Instance variables are marked as private and they are going to be accessed only through getters and setters. Perfect. This helps protect the instance variable from illegal or unintended assignment. So the benefit that we get from encapsulation is that it protects instance variable from illegal or unintended assignment. Is this part clear? You cannot assign illegal values to these variables. Now, implementation in the framework. In your framework, okay, in any project, not only just in test automation framework, in your backend application, anywhere, whenever you are going to have instance variable, you always mark the instance variable with private keyword. The most important variable in your class is always going to be the instance variable. Okay, the most important variable inside the class is always going to be instance variable. And something which is really important to me, something which is very dear to me, I try to protect it from the world. Why? Because the thing is, you don't know, right, how exactly the world is going to use that particular stuff, right? So you want to protect it at any cost. Okay, and we do that by marking it with private keyword. So in the framework, all the classes that contains instance variable, you're going to mark them as private, and getters and setters are provided to access or update them. So again, a small info. What is the job of setters? What is the job of setters? The job of setters is to perform updation. Updation of what? Updation of instance variable. Now, commonly, we are going to have these Pojo classes, the browser utility and other utility and page classes. These are the places where I will be marking the instance variable as private. All right. I have written it off over here where we have used encapsulation. Perfect. Now, Let's go to our framework. All right. And I want you guys to observe this particular chap. Over here, guys, this is the framework that I have. Okay. Let me just scroll up and I have this particular framework ready to be used. Okay. This is the automation assignment. And you have all these various components in this particular framework. Now, over here, you see com.constants. So all the constants, okay, of your projects are stored over here. All the constants. Now, the thing over here is constants can be handled in two ways. Either you can store it in interfaces. Okay. Either you can store it in enum or you can store it in properties file. Generally, most of the time, people remember that, hey, if there's a constant, the base URL and all, you're supposed to store it in the these are constant. You're going to store it in the properties file. But this is a package. All right. So in the package now, we only have Java entities. So browser, environment, and size. All right. This is something that I've stored as constants. And this is my enum. So over here, you will notice that browser can take the value as Chrome, browser can take the value as Firefox, browser can take the value as Edge. So enums are what? Enums are basically constants. So basically, here I'm storing the constant. What kind of a browser I'm going to use? Chrome, Firefox, Edge. All right. I could have stored it in interface. I could have stored it inside the properties file. Also, the way to access them would have changed. Enum would have made my life a little bit easier. That's the reason enums are there. Again, in interview, they ask the question where you have used enums. Okay. To handle and store constants. Browser information, Chrome, Firefox, Edge. I have stored it. If I go to environment, this is basically a QA, dev, UAT environment. If I go to size, I think so this is small, medium, large. This is related to that application. All right. Nothing fancy. Then you have the data provider. So over here, we have the data provider component. Technically, if you want to do data-driven testing, you will be using data providers. Of course, you guys know that. So over here, login data provider is there. Then you have listeners. Okay. This is important. Again, in interview, they ask the question where you have used interfaces. So over here, you will see the two interfaces popping up. Okay, the interfaces used. Okay, iTest listener and retry analyzer. So these are the two classes which are implementing those interfaces. Here, you have your page classes coming into picture. These are the place where Pojo classes are there. Technically, com.ui.test, your test is there. And com.ui utilities, this is where all the reusable utility methods are present. In the config folder, the configuration files are stored. Then you have the screenshot, test data, logs, all those chaps are there. All right. We'll discuss about the other thing later, but this is something that you really want to remember as of now, that we have the constants. The constants are basically, you can store the constants either in interfaces, enums, or properties. Let me close this particular chap for you guys so you can read it better. All right. But I'm using enums over here. Then you have data provider. The job of the data provider is to help in passing test data, pass the test data from file to test. UI.listener. This is where we have used interfaces. Com.ui pages. This is where the page classes comes into picture. Then you have the Pojo classes, the utility. If you want, you can take a screenshot of this particular chart. It is definitely going to be useful for now. All right. I hope you guys have taken the screenshot. Now, the thing over here is, if I go to the Pojo classes, now let's pick up any of the Pojo class. That's his home page. All right. Let's use login over here. That would be better. Oh, this is a page class. My bad. All right. Pojo classes. Let's use the user. What do you see? Variables which are created inside the class. All right. These are the variables which are created inside the class, all right, and are going to be non-static. These are your instance variable. Instance variables are basically initialized by the constructor, and you will see that these variables are binded are binded to these special methods: get email address, set email address, get password, set password. Right now, all I want you guys to do is observe. Don't write the code and all. Okay. The reason over here is, if you're able to see that, okay, this is where encapsulation comes into picture, done. That's it. You at least need to be aware where these things are used. Getting the point? So, this is where encapsulation pops up. Let's go to utility, and I have browser utility. And you will see that browser utility also has this logger. This is also an instance variable. All right. We have the WebDriver wait, and you see there's a get WebDriver. All right. So there is encapsulation happening here also. Are you getting the point? So in any class, wherever there is going to be your instance variable, you're technically going to have getters or setters popping up. Are you getting the point? That's where you are using encapsulation. I hope this particular part is clear to everyone. Now, if I go back to the notes, now guys, you just need to remember the benefit why you are going to use encapsulation. Now, the thing over here is, the benefit of encapsulation is, okay, why it is used. All the fields are going to be private, okay, and you can only access these fields by getter or setter. So only getters are provided, immutable object patterns wherever applicable. So if you are not going to have setters, setters are meant for updation, right? If I don't introduce setter, what I'm doing, I'm making that particular class immutable. Immutable means something that cannot be modified. What cannot be modified? The instance variables cannot be modified. All right? Because modification happens because of your setters. Then Jatin, initialization happens. The initialization of instance variable happens because of constructor. All right? Data can be set only through constructor. All right? Third point. The initialization of the instance variables are going to happen with constructor. Prevent unintended modification after object creation. I hope this particular part is clear to everyone. Okay? Now, what I want you guys to do is, this particular page is going to be over here. Take a moment, read this particular stuff carefully. Pause this particular video. I want you guys to read this entire stuff one more time before we go to the next stuff. All right, I hope you have gone through the entire encapsulation. Let's move on to the next one, which is inheritance. Come on, everyone knows what is inheritance. Whenever there is going to be a relationship between two classes, okay, how do you show the relationship? With the help of extends keyword, right? With the help of extends keyword. So over here, inheritance allows a class to inherit the properties and methods from another class, which helps in code reuse and maintainability. This is the only point that you should remember about inheritance. The thing about inheritance is, of course, I'm going to have child-parent relationship. That is so but obvious. But what do I get in return? You get code reusability as well as the maintainability. All right. Again, in interview, they can ask, how did you ensure that you were implementing single responsibility principle? Inheritance. Okay. Inheritance is that. Because your child classes, okay. So I have this homepage class, my account page, address page, shopping cart page, and all, right. They all are extending this parent class called browser utility. So if, let's say, there is a method over here called enter text, this particular method is over here. All right. So all the child classes can access this particular method. They don't need to write the logic again in their respective classes. Are you getting the point? In future, if there is going to be any change happening to enter text, where I'm supposed to make the change, should I make the change in homepage? Should I make the change in my account page? No, just make change at one place, browser utility. So any modification or maintenance required, I'm supposed to do it at only one place. All right. So maintenance is improved over here. This is the benefit that we get when you are using inheritance. All right. And where we are using inheritance, we are having the browser utility class, which is the parent or the base class, and all the child classes. Which are the child classes over here? These are the page classes. All right. These are the page classes. So all the page classes extends this browser utility class. Are you getting the point? Do you want to see the code? Let's see the code now. So over here, guys, this is the browser utility class, and we have the homepage class over here. So you will notice that homepage class extends browser utility. So you have these methods now: go to website, click on, and probably if I just go to the login page, you will see more like enter text, click on, all these buttons, all these methods, my bad. Okay. These methods are basically the methods which are created in the browser utility class. All right. And we are using them in these various page classes. In future, let's say there is some change that has happened to the Selenium WebDriver code, or there is something new stuff I need to manage in the browser utility, I can do it directly over here. I don't need to go and make changes in the login page or any of the page classes. So browser utility is going to be this one entity which is going to manage the entire Selenium WebDriver code for us. Okay. So in future, there is if there is any change, this is the place where I'm supposed to make the changes. Are you getting the point? Perfect. Now, if I go back to the document over here, guys, the next thing is the benefits. All right. The benefits of your inheritance is that one, all the page classes inherits common browser operation. That's the benefit that we get. No code duplication is there. All right. Single point of maintenance for browser related operations and consistent behavior across all the pages. This is the benefit of inheritance that we get. I hope this part is clear. Okay, pause this particular video. I want you guys to read this entire stuff one more time at your end. All right, I hope you have read this stuff also. Let's go on to the next one, which is polymorphism, which is pretty simple. Everyone knows about polymorphism. Polymorphism means what? Poly means many, and morphism means form. So we have multiple forms popping up, right? Polymorphism allows objects to be treated as instance of their parent classes and methods to behave differently based on the object type. Okay. So you have two types of polymorphism: compile time polymorphism as well as runtime polymorphism. Compile time polymorphism is the simplest one, where you are going to have multiple methods, and these multiple methods are going to be having same name. Then how is Java going to differentiate between the two methods? It is going to differentiate on the basis of the parameters. So we have the method overloading. So method overloading is an example of compile time polymorphism. So the benefit of the compile method overloading over here is the same methods with different parameters, flexibility on how the method is going to be called, more intuitive and readable APIs, technically methods. Method selection happens at compile times. Again, in interview, they ask the question where you have used method overloading, and then people start thinking where they have done it. I have done it in browser utility. All right. So in this particular framework, I have done it in browser utility. So just to show you again, it's pretty simple. It's not at all a very difficult thing. If I just do a Control O, let me just scroll up for you guys. Control O, it is going to open the structure of this particular class. You see that I have multiple constructors. All right. So this is where constructor overloading is happening. Here you will see a browser utility constructor which takes WebDriver, browser utility which is taking string, browser utility which is taking browser and boolean as a parameter. All right. And browser utility which just takes a browser. So we have constructor overloading is also happening over here. Please make a note of this particular stuff. Take a screenshot of it. I think I will not be able to click on this because if I click on this, the pop-up goes over here. So if I'm going to click on Control O, that's the shortcut. It's going to open the class structure. You will be able to see all the variables, methods, the constructors, and all those things. So over here now, guys, we are doing constructor overloading over here. And if you observe carefully, you have the click on checkbox and click on. So this click on method that you have, na, click on by, and this is click on web element. So we have a click on method which takes a by, the locator as a parameter, and we have click on which takes a web element as a parameter. Getting the point? So we have same methods which takes different parameters. And this is what you call it as method overloading. All right. Now, the second thing over here, back to the documents, it is going to be your runtime polymorphism. Again, a very important thing. Now, most of us are technically aware where you will be using your method overloading or compile time polymorphism. It's pretty simple, pretty straightforward. But a lot of time now, people really get, like confused where they have used runtime polymorphism. All right. Now, the thing over here is now, the listener classes, the listener component, which I showed you a moment back. Again, I'm going to show you, don't worry on those things. But over there, guys, we are doing your runtime polymorphism. So interface implementation is always going to be runtime polymorphism. So test listener is implementing iTest listener. Your iTest listener basically has a lot of abstract method, right? And some of those abstract methods are implemented in this particular class. So during the execution of the program, what? Your Java is not going to call these abstract methods. It is going to call the methods which you have implemented in your test listener class. So whenever you are making the methods as abstract, you are forcing method overriding. I repeat, whenever you are marking a particular method as abstract, you force ki baba, you need to do overriding. That's the reason you will notice that @override annotation gets attached over there. Are you getting the point? So let me show you that also. Let's go back to the framework. Over here, we have your retry analyzer. Let's start with over here. Here you will see that @override annotation is popping up. This is where method overriding is definitely happening because retry analyzer has one abstract method. This retry method, you see, it is an abstract method. It does not have a body, but this method is getting implemented over here. Perfect. Same goes for test listener. Here also, if you notice now, guys, if you go to this iTest listener, your iTest listener interface has all these methods. Now, we have the default methods which have been introduced in your Java for interfaces. So, we can have the default implementation. So, interfaces can also have concrete method body. But the thing over here is, what I have done is we are implementing these methods in our test listener class. So you see on test start, on test success, on test failure, the logic has been written over here. So here also method overriding is happening. All right. Java, instead of calling the default method, okay, it is going to call the test listener on test start. Okay. This is going to be decided at runtime. Okay. So this is runtime polymorphism. Now, if you go back to your notes, over here, you will notice the benefits of having method overloading and method overriding. So for the method overriding, the benefit that comes into picture is that TestNG framework treats test listener as iTest listener type, meaning it is treating the test listener class as the parent entity now, which is the iTest listener type. Actual implementation is going to be decided at runtime. Okay, so runtime polymorphism is happening. Enables a loose coupling with the TestNG framework, and this is important. This particular line, enable loose coupling. Sometimes again, when people are given interview, they just know ki Baba, you have to do method overriding. But what benefit that you get? Okay, you get it the loose coupling. All right. With your runtime polymorphism, you will always get the benefit of loose coupling. Whereas you are using this loose coupling over here or method overriding, whenever you are creating the reference of parent type and the object is going to be created of child type. Okay. So over here, you write this thing now, web driver WD equal to new Chrome driver. Okay. The object is always going to be created of child class. The object is always created of child class, but the reference is the parent class entity. Sorry, the parent entity. Because WebDriver is an interface, right? So interfaces are also parent entity that comes into picture because it's also giving you some kind of rules, all right, that you can actually implement it in your subclasses. All right. Now, the next thing which is very important and very simple is basically abstraction. What is abstraction? Everyone knows hiding of the complex information is basically what you call as abstraction. So if you read over here, it's written abstraction hides the complex implementation details and exposes only the essential feature to the user. So again in interview they ask where you have used abstraction. The answer is browser utility. So implementation in the framework, whenever you create any utility classes, all right, utility classes always act as an abstraction layer. Browser utility act as a wrapper over Selenium WebDriver. I see a lot of people when they're learning Selenium, they're creating the framework and all, na, in their test code, all right, the test method and all, they start using the Selenium WebDriver code. That is a bad practice also. Okay, you're not supposed to use any library as it is. Always create a wrapper on it. Whether you want to use JSON, whether you want to use your Excel, you want to use your CSV reader, you want to use Selenium WebDriver, you want to use REST Assured also, you want to use APM. Always create a wrapper on them. Okay, because with the help of wrapper what you're doing is you're trying to introduce abstraction. So in our framework, browser utility basically act as a wrapper over Selenium. Then JSON utility abstracts the JSON parser. I'll show you that also. CSV reader abstracts the open CSV library, and the page object model follows the abstraction pattern that comes into picture. Now, the benefit of abstraction is that the test cases are readable and easy to maintain. All right. Implementation changes does not affect your testing code. If anything changes in Selenium WebDriver, I'm just supposed to update the browser utility class methods and all. I'm not supposed to change my page classes. I'm not supposed to update my test classes, nothing. So the maintenance is low when you are trying to have abstraction. Reduces complexity for test writers. I'll show you my test script also. Clearly separates what to do from how to do it. All right. So your Selenium code technically talks about how. Okay. You're going to find the element. You're going to have the locators and all those things. You're going to click on those buttons. So those are basically a lot of code, heavy code that pops up. All right. So we wrap it up in certain methods which are created by us and we consume them in our framework. All right. So observe over here. I'm directly going to show you the framework code itself. So over here, if I go to the browser utility, all right, let's do a control O again. And we have this, let's go with the basic one, which is click. All right. So let's click on click on. And you will notice that click on method internally calls the your Selenium WebDriver code. So there's a web element that is getting found over here, and then we are performing the click. This is your Selenium WebDriver code. But I am not consuming or I'm not using the Selenium WebDriver code in my page classes or in my test classes. I am only using the Selenium code in my browser utility. So in future, if anything changes, let's say Selenium WebDriver modifies this entire stuff, all right, and a new statement gets created over there, I am supposed to make changes over here. If your click method is not working, I'm supposed to come to this click on method. I'm supposed to make changes here. Getting the point? This is the benefit we get over here. Right. Now, if I go to my page classes, let's pick up a very simple login page. Here you will see I'm calling my wrapper methods. Enter text. Okay. Email text box locator, email address. So if I go and scroll up, I have my locators, email text box locator by ID, password text box locator by ID, whatever the password locator is there, those things are there. But over here, na, these are my locators. By classes are basically locators. Na? So over here, enter text, I'm giving the text box locator, the locator itself, as well as what value I'm supposed to enter over there. All right, that string value and passing it off over here too. So if I go to this enter text, this is where my Selenium code pops up. So I am not using the Selenium code directly in my page classes. I'm creating a layer of abstraction. Now look at my test also. If I go to the com.ui test, let's pick up the simplest one, login test, because everyone likes login test, right? Let me just zoom out. All right. I hope you guys can see it. Look carefully. How many lines of code? One line of code. All right. One line of code. Assert equals home page, go to login page, do login with the email address, the password, get the username and check whether the username is Jatin Sharma. Make sense? So over here, when you have abstraction implemented correctly in your framework, what happens is your writing of your test also becomes simple. All right. So this is exactly one line of code. And this is how you make your test maintainable. Again, in interview, they can ask the question, how did you maintain your test scripts? How did you make sure that your test scripts are maintainable? By implementing abstraction. That by ensuring that my test methods are not lengthy. And these are the roots. All right. Today, you have these Cursor, your Copilot, your Claude desktop, a lot of things. Claude code is there. So the thing that comes over here is even if AI is coming into picture and AI is going to write the code, someone needs to take the ownership, right? So previously, before AI, mediocrity was something which was accepted, you know. But the stuff now is when you are giving interviews, you have to level up yourself. You can't just go with basic knowledge. All right. And this is not something that you should be really scared of. This is from my personal understanding I'm talking about. The whole purpose of human life is to get better. All right. But the thing is, we don't like doing hard work. All right. We try to find that enjoyment and, like the fun in the leisure things. Okay. If you just do a switch and remove that leisure and you focus on improving yourself, you'll just enjoy the process. Okay. Your life will be way different from this folks who just like feel that work is only for the sake of doing it off and the whole fun of life is to just do the enjoyment. Well, it's not. Okay. How much enjoyment you're going to do, how much Netflix shows you're going to watch, all right? How many reels you watch and how many reels do you really remember, all right? I would rather spend time with my friends and family and remember those moments, all right, rather than remembering a video that I watched, okay, for 5 seconds. Okay, I don't want to do any of those things. And I hope you also don't want to do those things. Okay. Give priorities to things that really matters. All right. And again, what happens is when people study now, they have this thing that they will go into that tutorial loop. What they will do, they will jump from one tutorial to another tutorial. That's the reason I always say build projects. Don't go into that trap that, okay, I'm going to enter into YouTube and I'm going to watch a particular video. All right. Don't do that. Even in the playlist, whatever I have kept over here on this YouTube channel, I've always ensured that we are building projects. Because once you build projects, now you enjoy the whole process because you have a problem statement and you're solving that stuff. Okay. And these projects, these stuff, you can put it in your resume as your GitHub portfolios, showcase it in interviews and all. This is something which will help you guys a lot. All right. So this is what abstractions brings us. And to be honest, in all my utilities, now CSV reader utility, if you go over here, I have a method which is called read CSV file. How the read is going to happen, okay, the code is over here. In my framework, I'm only going to call read CSV file. Where I'm calling the read CSV file, I'm going to call it in the data provider. So if I open the data provider, login CSV data provider, here you will notice read CSV file. How the read is going to happen, I'm not really interested in that. Getting the point? Because over here, this method is going to take care of all those things. Is this part making sense to everyone? That's what abstraction is. Let's go back to this particular document. And over here, the benefit of abstraction is the test cases are readable and easy to maintain. I hope you saw the scripts over here. Implementation changes do not affect the test code. Okay. So I don't need to modify my test. I can just go to the respective utility class. I need to just make changes over there and everything should work fine. Reduces the complexity for test writers. People who are writing scripts, they don't really need to worry about Selenium code anymore. They need to use our methods. All right. Clearly separates what to do from how to do it. All right. Please take a moment, read these points quickly. I hope you have gone through this entire stuff. Now, let's go to the next one, which is composition. All right. Composition. Composition over here basically means has a relationship. It's pretty simple. All right. Composition represents or has a relationship. Inheritance basically is a relationship. All right. Login page is using browser utility. Okay. So composition represents or has a relationship, whereas where a class contains objects of other classes as its member. Where we have used composition, I've just given a simple example, browser utility. Okay. Browser utility has WebDriver. Browser utility has a logger. Browser utility has WebDriver wait. All right. So if you are using the references of other classes as variables, and these are all what? Variables which are going to be created inside the class. Whether they are static or non-static, they're different, but they should be created at class level. All right. So composition relationship basically means browser utility has a WebDriver, browser utility has a logger, and browser utility has a WebDriver wait. So again, back to the code. If I go to the browser utility, let me scroll up. Here you see, here you have a thread local WebDriver, you have a logger, and you have a WebDriver wait. Okay, so this is where composition comes into picture. Is this part clear? Whenever you are creating a reference, this is a reference variable, this is a reference variable, this is a reference variable. All right. Whenever you're creating a reference of some other class, WebDriver wait is another class, logger is other class, your WebDriver thread local is altogether a different class. Okay. So whenever you're creating the reference variable, okay, inside your class, and these classes are all of different classes, all right? That's going to introduce composition. I hope this particular part makes sense to everyone. Perfect. And the last part that comes into picture is called association, okay? Association. Association is also simple. Association represents a relationship between two independent classes. Association represents a relationship between two independent classes through their objects. Meaning, one-to-one association is used between page classes. So from the home page, I can go to the login page. All right. So if you are going to have these page classes, all right, you technically move from one page class to another page class. Now, from home page, I can click on the login button and it's going to take me to the login page, right? Then on the login page, I'm going to fill all the details. And the moment I'm going to do a login, it is going to take me to the probably the dashboard page or something like that. So the thing that is there now is in the page class methods, we always return a page object of some other class. So technically, you are implementing association. Getting the point? If not, let me just show you quickly. So over here, we have the login page. So let's go to the page classes. And this is, let's say, the home page that we have. All right. Look carefully. Let me just zoom in for you guys. We have this go to login page. Now, this is the method that we have. Then this is the home page class. Perfect. So from the home page, we have this particular method called go to login page. It's going to do something, something, something. And then it is returning me new login page object. Meaning from the home page class, when I'll be calling this go to login page, it is going to create the object of new login page. Technically, it's going to create the object of login page. So this basically introduces what? Association. If you go to this login page, let's open the declaration. Over here, do login with. If I call this particular method, I give the email address and the password. When all these operations, enter text, click on, everything happens, I'll technically be moving to my accounts. That particular page I'll be moving to. So here, inside the login page, I'm creating the object of my accounts. So again, association is happening. All right. This is what you call as association. So we saw like around 6 core principles of object-oriented programming and where we have implemented it in our automation framework. Now, the benefit of association, just to read over here, is that it models real user navigation flow. From home page, I can go to login page. From login page, I can go to the accounts page. All right. This is the benefit that I get. Page clearly knows which page they can navigate to. All right. Loose coupling as pages remain independent classes. Now, if tomorrow something changes in login page, I don't have to make changes in the account page. I will go to the login page class and I'm going to do the modification. If something changes in the home page, you are not going to make changes in the login or the account page. You will modify the home page class. All right. So proper loose coupling is there, that every responsibility is well managed, okay, with the respective classes. Oof. Done. All right. So this is all about the first question. All right. And I hope you got the gist of the things that we have learned over here. And at least you are a little bit confident about answering this particular question. Now, what I want you guys to do is, okay, I believe it's going to be pretty late for you guys. So what you guys are going to do, tomorrow morning, when you're going to wake up, freshen up, have your tea, coffee, whatever, take a notebook, take your pen, write down all these things in your own words. Can you do that? Once it is done, all right, come back to this particular video and say that homework completed. Perfect. I'm going to see you guys in the next class. Now, for people who are interested in this notes and all, you guys can join the YouTube Tech with Jatin membership. It's a pretty good thing, man. You should definitely see the videos which are there. It's a good thing. All right. And In case of any doubts and queries, you know where to reach out to me. You can put your queries in the comments section. All right. I'm going to see you guys in the next one. Till then, take care. Bye bye. It's pretty late for me. Good night, guys. Bye bye.